Orfist has been a favorite of mine since his initial reveal. The fact that Link Joker was making an immediate return in Overdress was one of the few things that got me excited for D-Series at all. And funnily enough, his initial reveal actually happened on my birthday, March 23rd. But out of anything Overdress has given us, I love how basically every deck actually evolves with new forms and iterations just like the main characters do. It makes me feel like I'm actively playing the game since even my obscure decks change with me. And since I started university close after Overdress began, I kinda got to grow alongside my new avatar, Orfist. Anyways, this deck fucks, and I gotta talk about it. It's actually one of my main grievances not making videos for so long because I really wanted to make a video with Orfist talking about it, either playing it or now finally making a full deck guide for it. Orfist has always been a deck utilizing their breed of set orders, world cards. They all have the universal effect that so long as you only have world cards in your order zone, you get the state of Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight based on if you have one or two or more respectively. These states don't actually matter that much since Orfist became a mass deck and dropped a lot of his cards that cared about it. Though there are still definitely some certified Gs that are great inclusions that care about Dark Knight and Abyssal Dark Knight. Now to explain Mask decks real quick, the deck's new keycard is Orfist Masks, which has the effect that, like all other Mask units, they can only be rode upon another Orfist, meaning you gotta ride a different Orfist first and keep this guy in your main deck. To facilitate this, there's a grade 3 normal order Maskified Dragon, which when played lets you check top 5 for a Mask or Dragon Tree unit and add it to hand. In drop, you can put it into Soul during your main phase to ride a Mask unit from hand. If the opponent is at grade 3 or greater, it becomes a Persona ride. Combine this with your nation's Dragon Tree Retch that searches the Maskified Dragon order, and you get a really strong upgrade to your deck. It's a main feature of the Mask decks that they get a turn 3 Persona ride so long as they're going second. Thing is though, their opponent is usually at low damage, so it doesn't make too much of an advantage. Though it is definitely strong. Getting started on the ride line, Fovi is adorable, and notice when rode, can search your deck for any world order and add it to hand. Cubisia gets 5k whenever you play a world order, and can be replaced with Combine Rusher for greater field presence and attacking numbers in the mid to late game, or Light Elemental Popoa to Energy Blast 4 instead of discarding to grade 3. Cardinal Dominus, Orfist Regis, has the ability to, when rode, set a world order from your hand or drop for free, which doesn't count as your one order per turn. Afterwards, when he attacks, he can counterblast 1 and discard a card to call a Shadow Army token for every 2 of your world orders, then giving himself 5k for every 2 as well. Shadow Army tokens are the deck's payoff for its world order gimmick. They're grade 1, 15k base power units with boost, and many Cardinal units will interact with them, either working with them or playing additional ones for their effect, with all other Cardinal cards usually working to set up world orders or get benefits from playing a lot of them and having Abyssal Dark Knight, though of course these ideas have been a bit forgotten in the Mask deck. Cardinal Morse, Orfist Mask, is the new big man on campus. He has the ability to remove a different named Orfist from hand, soul, or drop from the game to set a world order from drop. Beyond that, on attack he can counterblast 1 and destroy any number of your own world orders to call a Shadow Army token to an occupied rearguard circle for each one removed. If you call 2 or more, Orfist gets an extra drive check. This doesn't count as triple drives, so it gets past Elementaria, and this plus the Mask package setting up a turn 3 Persona ride if you went second, makes this a pretty killer deck. Moving on, there are 4 world orders to choose from in deck building. As previously mentioned, they all have the same Dark Knight state effects that have their own effect beyond that. Hollowing Moonlit Knight is a grade 2, costs 1 Soul Blast to play, and draws you a card when it's put into the order zone. In the Darkness Nobody Knows is grade 3, costs 1 Soul Blast, and retires an opponent's front row rearguard. Eclipse Moonlight costs a counterblast but calls a token, and Overcoming an Eternity costs 2 Soul Blasts but gives tokens 5k for the turn they're called. The game plan of Orfist Masks is to continuously play world orders and remove them with Orfist Masks to generate high value and large attacks. And explain just how he does it, I'll go over his key cards. Clark's Dragon is a grade 2 that, when played, if you have an Orfist Vanguard, he lets you Soul Blast 1 to set a world order from your drop zone that you don't already have set. And when he's put into drop zone from hand or rear, like being discarded by Regis or called over with a token by, well, either Orfist, so long as you have Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, he lets you draw a card. So for that, he's a welcome 4 of that you'll usually hold on to until your second Orfist Mask turn, or potentially the first if you really need to set up. Or if you get stuck on Regis, he's also a good option for getting your 4 world orders together and at least having some plays for turn 3. But regardless, whenever you have him, you'll have some world orders to replay in your drop zone, meaning it's a prime time to use him and get those refunding draws. Because you have to have Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight to get his draw, you're usually gonna have to leave 1 world order alive when you use Orfist Masks. But honestly, that's fine enough. Getting a draw or 2 instead of 1 more call is pretty okay. Especially because with Overcoming Eternity, you just want to keep that on the field. Opart is a grade 1 that, when called, if you have an Orfist Vanguard, lets you counterblast 1 to discard any world order from your deck, and when retired when your Vanguard is Orfist Masks, without any care if you have Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, you get to call another Shadow Army token. She is great for setting up specific orders for when you need different ones to play with Polarxis, and great way to make up for Orfist needing to call tokens to occupied circles. Recently announced is Raffalog, a grade 1 promo that offers another method of setup. On call, if you have Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, you can Energy Blast 3, check top 7 for a non-Regalis piece grade 3, or any world order and add it to hand. And on top of that, he gets 5000 shield if you have Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, meaning he can keep up your plays by helping set up worlds or grabbing Persona Rides, Mask Orders, or OG Orfist to remove with Morse. If you never get a chance though, it's just extra shield, which is always nice. Thing is though, Raffalog is a promo, so who knows when or if we'll get him in the Great Western World, so in the meantime let me suggest some other cards to round out your deck. For cyclers, you have two options. Habitable Zone can Soul Blast 1 to refund itself when discarded to ride, and if you call it on a Persona Ride turn, you can Counterblast 1 to search your deck for any set order and add it to hand. He also lets you play a second order this turn, and the next set order you play costs nothing. This is pretty great for just cherry picking whatever order you need, either drawing a card, filling up your field, or buffing your tokens. It works well for playing Combine Rusher, and of course if you still need to play Mask of Dragon to search for your Persona Rides, you get another chance to do that. The other new option is Panspermia, which can refund itself with a draw when discarded to ride or when put on guard from hand by Counterblasting 1 or Energy Blasting 3. And again, when called on a Persona Ride turn, you can pay that same cost to search your deck for a grade 3 unit with a different name for your Vanguard or any set order, though you have to discard a card from hand. Ultimately, these cards are just super good, so I'm using this way more than Habitable Zone these days. Finally is another option that just came out in DZ Set 2, Balderreed. He offers another setup option, but now is a boost in grade 1, which is kinda neat because the deck only usually has Opart to do that, but he gets 5k so long as you're at grade 3 and have 2 or more set orders, and after boosting can put himself into Soul to check top 5 for a grade 2 or greater unit card to add to hand or any set order, which in Orfist provides massive targets like all your world orders, either Orfist or Polarxis or Cyber Kaitool, whichever you're needing. They're all pretty required combo pieces or just add a lot of value to your deck. You also get to use Balderreed as soon as you start the game with an extra booster or attacker on the field. And besides, you never even realize how valuable a boosted Vanguard is until you're in the early game attacking and your opponent just can't guard. On top of that, the extra soul is pretty nice as it gets used for Polarxis or an extra draw if you're somehow splashing Messiah into Orfist, I don't know. So he's probably what I'm going to use instead of the promo for now. Thumberino, my beloved, is the last recommendation I have for a rearguard. She's a grade 1 8k unit that when boosting a Shadow Army token can give herself 15k, but at the end of the battle both retire and you draw a card. She is decent at best, and can help you cycle through your deck for one draw, which is never really a bad thing, as we've seen before, but ultimately I just wish she was better or we got a better version of her, because I'm forcing myself to run one copy of her and I could be running way better cards. Now putting these all together, you're definitely going to want 2, maybe 3 Mask Orders and 3 to 4 of the Mask Searcher, in this case Cyber Kaitool. Beyond that, you'll obviously want 4 Orfist Masks and some amount of Orfist Regis. You'll rarely ever need them for Persona Rides, but getting to dip back into Regis to get a free order and then mask back into Morse is great value, and even then just using it as a free Polarxis effect with masks is pretty swag. 2 options include Grunger, which is a grade 2 that, on call if you have Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, lets you check top 7 for up to 2 world orders to discard, which is good for builds with higher order counts and varied lineups. Slide Sturmer is a grade 2 that gets 5k whenever you play a set order, and also checks top 5 for a set order to add to hand, which is great for lower world counts, though both are still good picks regardless. For world orders, you're going to want 7 or 8 of them. With that, you'll usually run a mix of prioritizing Hollowing for draws or Eclipse Moonlight for tokens. You can replay any order you choose quite frequently, so it's just a matter of taste. Draws are always good, but rebuilding boards is great versus decks with field control, and even if you aren't fighting one, it's still great to refresh the buffs from Overcoming an Eternity, which you can run at 2, maybe 3 copies. At 3, it's kind of pushing it because if you draw into too many of them, you just don't have the soul for it, especially when you'd rather be using that soul for Polarxis or just playing a Hollowing from hand. And in fact, learning to let go of your Overcoming an Eternities is a very valuable tactic. Once you're in the late game, it's better to just use it for another token call to get a 15k booster for your attack, rather than just get a 5k buff to all your tokens. Ultimately, it makes numbers bigger and better for finishing games. Now for triggers, running high crits is great for making your good pressure even more deadly. And draws are okay, but you don't really need them too much, and fronts are better since your main plan involves having 2 attacks after your Vanguard. This is a deck that focuses on rearguard powers, so your opponent is probably going to be no-guarding the Vanguard attack even with the triple drive, so long as they're smart, at least. Meaning filling up on crits is going to be pretty valuable because your Vanguard's just not going to get guarded. Altogether, I like using fronts more since the extra shield covers more angles and adds extra assurance in your pressure, helping close out games as early as possible. So if you want a deck list, here's the one that I use right now in real life, and here's one that I would be using, which basically just maxes out on Raffalog. as a lot of people are doing. Finally, for gameplay, you're gonna have to keep track of the number of world orders you have access to, since throughout every iteration of Orfist, you gotta prioritize having 2 or more you can get into the order zone ASAP, since you literally have no plays without at least 2 present. Your drop zone and what orders are in there also become important to your setup and gameplay. For instance, you can always play a world order from drop when riding Regis, so the first order you see, hopefully something with a high cost like Eternity or Eclipse Moonlight, can be discarded for a free ride since it'll get played on turn 3. This free discard is kinda why you shouldn't use Popowa, and also because of this, the Orfist doesn't have an amazing grade 2. You may also be tempted to discard your Mask Order if you already have Morse in hand, since that can be a free ride, but I found it a lot more valuable to hold on to it until turn 3 so you can play it and secure future Persona ride turns. Since your first Persona ride on turn 3 going second is probably not going to finish him there, and you really need the added pressure to just keep attacking. I hope I was able to explain my favorite tech to you all. It's one that I've been able to feel at home with, and its presence throughout Overdress has been a massive part of my modern enjoyment with the game. If you have any advice to share with your fellow Cardinals, definitely leave a comment down below. And if you have any other memories of growth with Orfist or any other card that you like, do also share. I always love hearing them. So, anyways, thanks for watching.